As of now, it is officially, now we're ready to start our Express Entry webinar. And this is a live webinar that I'm super excited to host with you. And it's always good with live because nothing is scripted. And I'm sure that as we go through this, we're still quite novice in how we do these webinars. I have my technical advisor, Justin, who's here making sure that I've got the right screen and it's displaying properly. And then I have my right arm person, Billy Young, who is now a fully certified immigration consultant. We're super excited about that. She's our technical resource, and really she runs the place. So she's an ex-immigration officer, and we're super happy to have her a part of our firm and undertaking this new little venture with us. So welcome, everyone. One question I do want to ask is, before we jump in as well, and I think we've got a few more people here that have jumped in just the last few minutes, but how many attended the first webinar we did, the free webinar on Express Entry? So just type into the comments and let me know. Oh, and also we have Joseph from Ghana. Welcome, Joseph. Great to have you with us. So how many? Is anyone here? Oh, Razul. Hey, welcome back, Razul. Great. So we've got a few people that have attended the first one. When I decided to create this second one, I didn't want to overlap too much, but there were some things that I just couldn't help to repeat. And so as we go forward, I apologize to those who've seen some of the previous ones, but it's really, really important for me to go through in a very structured fashion so that everybody's on the same page and everybody understands why the heck we're doing this in the first place. And we have a very successful law firm, and we represent people from all over the world. But ultimately, myself, I was just dissatisfied with the number of people that were coming to our office that really genuinely needed assistance, but couldn't afford our legal fees. And so I, over the span of a number of months, realized that I needed to make some changes and do some things that would allow me to reach more people and to help more people. And I'll get into that in a little bit later as well within the webinar. But I just want to express appreciation to all of you who have taken the time to come and be a part of this webinar. And I hope that you will be able to get a lot out of it. And ultimately, I hope that you'll be able to catch the vision of what we're trying to do here within our newly created Canadian Immigration Institute. So without further ado, let me advance forward here a slide and talk about, to a large extent, Express Entry. The goal here is to share some really helpful tips that I hope will be able to help all of you gain a better understanding of what's going to make you successful when you enter into this crazy world of Express Entry. Now, the government has done all they can to try and make this seem as simple as possible, but trust me, when that change occurred back in January the 1st of 2015, it was not a very pleasant experience for many, many people. And as I go through the webinar, you'll see as I share some stories, there were a lot of people that were left out. And it just broke my heart to see people who had given their lives 3, 4, 5 years working, studying here in Canada, who had pathways to permanent residence. And after January the 1st, 2015, it was gone. So this goal of mine here is to try and help as many people as possible now so that they can take proactive steps to make sure they don't fall into the same trap as other people that have come to Canada and tried to transition to permanent residence but have not been able to. And also all of the rest of you all over the world who are listening to this webinar, who are looking for ways to come to Canada and see it as an opportunity for personal growth, professional growth, and new opportunities for family. And I love the country. It's a wonderful place. And if you listen to my Canadian Immigration podcast, and you listen to that last song that I have at the end of it, and I guess here's one other opportunity for me to ask you guys questions. Who has listened to my podcast, and have you heard that little song that I had made? And it's a little bit cheesy, but it pretty much encapsulates my feelings about this awesome country and what I'm doing in terms of helping people come. So with that being said, yeah, make sure you get your notepads ready. Take good notes. I'll tell you why in a little bit here. Turn off your cell phones. Well, ultimately, many of you I know, based on our prior reports, are actually watching this on your handheld devices. So turn off the cell portion, and so you can focus. And I would not want you to miss a thing. But like I said, it's going to be recorded, so you'll have that opportunity to go back and check if you've missed anything. So here's the special offer that I've got. There are, like I said, you guys have taken the time to be here with me, which I really, really appreciate. And so I'm going to offer this time two 30-minute legal consultations. And part of the reason I've offered them as 30 minutes instead of a full hour like I did in the last webinar is because, in all honesty, in 30 minutes, we were able to cover every single thing that the person wanted to address within Express Entry. So here's how it works. Two 30-minute legal consultations I will offer free to the top 2 note takers on the webinar. And I will tell you exactly how you can submit those notes to us nearing the end of the webinar. But those of you who have taken the time to be here with us, I encourage you to take notes, and the top 2 note takers will be selected for a free 30-minute legal consultation with myself. And I know the individuals in our last webinar found it extremely helpful. And so I'm excited to offer that and to reward those of you who sacrificed time to be here with us. All right, what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk a little bit about Express Entry because I know that some of you are not quite sure exactly how it works. So we're going to touch on that. Then I considered not talking about this second little stage, the top 5 things to prepare before applying for Express Entry. But you know what? You just can't. It is absolutely critical. And these are aspects that every single person needs to understand as they're going through the process. Then, as promised, I'm going to address our listener questions. And then I'm going to dive into what I am really passionate about, and that's this Express Entry course. So hang on, and let's get this show on the road. I made a promise to myself as I started practicing law that I would not be, even though I worked at a large national law firm initially, I realized that the thing that I loved the most was interacting with people directly. And so I promised myself, after looking at all of these immigration providers, consultants, lawyers across the country, these big firms, big immigration companies per se, after looking at them and seeing so many that had no name of a person on them, they were just nameless, they were faceless. You had no clue who was actually working on your application, or you had one individual that was kind of the face of the operation, but you never had a prayer of even talking to them. And I swore to myself that was not going to be the case. I was going to develop personal relationships with the clients that that I act for, and that they would literally be almost like family with us. Well, that is, if you want a crazy redneck family member like myself as a part of your family. But anyways, that's a different story. So who am I? Let's jump into it. Here is the Southern Alberta farm boy. So you can see here, my mom loved to dress us up in the same cowboy shirts, and that's me there in the bottom. And I was a farm kid, had our cattle that we raised, and that was one of my calves that I raised from a little one. And so that's my roots. We were as humble. We grew gardens. We to a large extent didn't make a lot of money on the farm, and so we lived off of what we could raise. And I'm almost positive that is probably a similar story to many people that all over the world that are looking for opportunities to come to Canada. I loved athletics when I was a kid. I did a lot of high jump, and I had the opportunity to compete for the Olympic trials in Barcelona in '92, and that's me on the far end. And I was the little guy, and all these other guys were pretty much professional athletes. But anyways, it was an awesome experience. I loved it. I had a tremendous passion for it. I played volleyball as well with the local college team. And so sports were my life. And you're probably asking, well, how the heck did you become an immigration lawyer when you were pursuing athletics? And that's a good question, because I actually started my career as a high school teacher, and I loved it. It was so much fun, and it was great. But through a number of reasons, a decision was made to move on and go to law school. And so I did that in the Faculty of Law at the University of Manitoba. And this is where my life changed. So I had an opportunity, and this is the Chief Mountain Border Crossing. I actually worked at this port of entry, and there's me in my immigration uniform with my nice little badge there. While I was going through law school, I had the opportunity to work, and that is what got my introduction into immigration. And I have not looked back since. And so when I finished my law degree and started practicing, and there's a picture of my family, and that picture there actually has got 3 little ones. I actually have 4. But when I graduated, I realized that I wanted to pursue immigration law, and I had a wonderful opportunity to do that. And they are the reason right here why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I've got Michaela and Jessica and Adam and Connor and my wife Deanna, and that's our family. And we are quite the bunch. But that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's for them and because I love it, and you can't beat that. Without getting into too much more background, I don't want to make this all about me show, but I've had an opportunity to speak and present all over in so many different organizations to teach lawyers, teach consultants, HR managers, everything about immigration. And my teaching background just fell into it just wonderfully. And so I had an opportunity to do that. I frequently offer, comment to the news media on different changes within immigration in the country. And I've also been recognized. I'm going to get a quick drink here. There, that's a little better. Recognized among many of the who's who legal and best lawyers is recognized by my peers as someone who knows what they're doing within Canadian immigration. So we'll skip through that. So that's a little bit about me, and I think you've got to now have a little bit of a flavor, so no one can say, who is this Mark Holthe? Who's this? What is this Canadian Immigration Institute, and what makes him think he can teach anything about immigration? And why does he even care? Why does he even want to share these things? Because obviously this webinar itself is free. And to a large extent, I have a sincere desire to help people. And obviously, if I was to help people and not charge anything, I would be in a pretty rough position trying to support my family. So I've been able to blend the ability to help people with their immigration and to really be a positive influence in their lives with an ability to provide for myself. And there's no better thing in the world to have than those two things. So let's jump in and talk about express entry. And this is for those of you who maybe have read a little bit but haven't quite understood exactly what it's all about. Jumped ahead a little bit there. So on January the 1st, that's when Express Entry launched. And really, it's a process to manage the economic immigration programs that were already in existence. And those were the Federal Skilled Trade Program, the Federal Skilled Worker, and the Canadian Experience Class. Now, some of you will know that there are provincial nominee programs across the country that are provincially directed, and some of them have programs specifically geared towards express entry. Some don't, like the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program, the AINP, they don't participate in express entry. So express entry is designed to manage the intake of applicants. And in the past, if you look at this little graphic with the little green man there, you'll see that traditionally in the old process, people who wanted to apply for permanent residence to Canada, they would submit their applications if they qualified, and they would just sit in the queue till years passed until it was actually approved. So it was a first in, first out process. Well, the government didn't like that because many people qualified, and many of you would qualify under any of these programs. But the government said, look, we can only take so many a year, and rather than have them go into this long queue where it's going to take 6 or 7 years to process an application, and we are going to take more control over who actually gets to apply. So we're not going to change the rules of the permanent resident program. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to select only who they consider to be the best and the brightest, those candidates who are best suited to integrate into the labor market in Canada. We're going to choose them. We're going to rank everyone against each other, and we're going to pull out the ones that we feel have the greatest chance of success based on a number of human capital factors, and we're going to give them an invitation to apply to permanent residence. So that's where we're at. That's where you are. If you're considering coming to Canada, pre-January 1st, 2015, if you met the requirements of one of the categories, well, you knew, you had certainty, you could apply and it would be approved. Well, that's not the case now. And this is what's caused all of the uncertainty and the pain and the suffering to so many people, because nothing is guaranteed anymore. You don't know 100% whether you're going to be drawn or not. Now, I'll help you to understand a little bit more as we go forward here, the likelihood of being drawn, but there's no guarantees. And so that's what's changed with Canada. All right. So their object behind being selective in who they choose is to keep the processing times down. So what they've indicated is if you are selected and given an invitation to apply, you will be able to gain permanent residence through a fast track process. And they've said after receiving that invitation to apply, once you submit your permanent resident application, they will process it within 6 months. And that's the majority of applications. There's always going to be outliers that don't quite fit within that 6 months, but generally speaking, those are their targets. All right, so how does it work? Well, right off the bat, when we talked about, I'm going to go back to this slide, we talked about those three programs, the Federal Skilled Trade, Federal Skilled Worker, and the Canadian Experience Class. Well, right off the bat, you have to meet the minimum requirements of those programs before you can even get through the door. So you can't submit your profile unless you meet the eligibility requirements for one of those programs. Well, if you do that, then you can create your profile and you can submit it. Those of you who do not have either a current job in Canada that is supported by a labor market impact assessment, which is a process where companies show that there's no Canadian that can fill the job, and so they get special permission from the government to then hire a foreign national to fill that job. So those LMIA-based job offers, if you do not have one of those, then the next step after submitting your profile is to register on the job bank. And it's designed for individuals to self-promote to employers. So effectively, you wouldn't need a recruiter, is the theory, to, who's trying to find a job for, trying to find candidates for jobs with Canadian employers. You can bypass those recruiters and be connected through this matching process, which is somewhat like an online dating site, I guess, like eHarmony or one of these other ones that are designed to match people that are theoretically compatible. Well, that's what the job bank process with this employer matching system was designed to do. You were to insert your qualifications and your background and work experience, and then any jobs that companies are looking to fill with a foreign national, they would post on the job bank, and then the wonderful matching system would connect you, and it would be, love at first sight, and you'd be hired, and it would be bliss. Well, I can tell you that has not translated very well in real terms. And there's a human element to getting a job in Canada. And within the course, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And I know that there are many people, one of the more common questions I get is, how can I find an employer who is willing to hire someone with my credentials? How do I get connected with them? Because that's the golden ticket. And I'll talk about that as well. But that's the golden ticket for Express Entry. And that's one of the most common questions I get. And it's a very complicated and comprehensive process that I can't address on this webinar, but I can tell you it is something that we talk about within the course. And so there'll be tips and strategies on what you can do to increase your chances of getting connected with a Canadian employer. And that is the exact kind of information that we're going to have in this course. And I think the course is awesome. But ultimately, it will be up to you guys to test it out, and then in the end, offer your feedback. And it's going to be designed on exactly what you ask for, and that's what I'm going to give you. So back to the Express Entry, it's going to, if you put your name within the employer matching system, it's designed to hopefully match you up with an employer if there is one looking for someone with your skill sets. More often than not, that's not the case, but that's the reality. So then, once you're into the Express Entry pool, every so often the government will then do a round of invitations, and that round of invitations, if your point total on the comprehensive ranking system, if it's high enough and it's above that pass mark, then you'll be given an invitation to apply for permanent residence. You have 2 months to submit your permanent resident application, and it's critical. And this is something else I will cover in the course. It's absolutely critical that you have your documentation as much as possible in place when you know you've got a good chance of getting drawn, that you have it in place right away, because you only have 2 months to get everything together. And if you're trying to get documentation and you're relying on third parties or other people outside of your control, you can lose out on your opportunity to file your permanent resident because you just run out of time. So 2 months to file your permanent resident application, and then the government says they will process it within 6 months, and that's for the majority of cases. All right, so now let's take a step forward and take a close look at this comprehensive ranking system. It's important to note that the ranking system treats single people different than married. And normally you would think that, well, someone that's married may have an advantage over someone that's single. Well, in this case, it's actually not the case. And one of the issues that we're dealing with right now is the fact that the whole comprehensive ranking system is broken down into component parts. There are factors associated with education and experience, and traditionally, those factors total 500 points. The grand total of points that an individual could potentially get is 1,200, but 500 of them are based on what we call human capital factors. So you can see here, education, experience, Canadian work experience, your age, your language abilities, those are the factors that they look at. But you'll see here on the left side is when you're married or you have a common law partner. On the left side is when you're single, and on the right is when you're married or you have a common law partner. And so right off the bat, and you'll see here in a second, individuals that are single, their point totals for human capital are based solely on themselves. But if you're married, 40 points from your total are stripped away and given to your spouse. So you can see here at this arrow, 40 of the education and experience factor points are attributed to your spouse. And so if your spouse doesn't have as good of English as language ability as you do, or doesn't have as much education, then married couples are actually prejudiced to some extent because of that. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So what are the human capital factors? Well, you can earn, and this is for a single person, up to 110 points for age. Language is 160 points. Education is 150. And finally, Canadian work experience is 80. So if you do the math, you'll see that will total up to 500 points. Then they look at these transferability factors, which are really a combination of education mixed with language ability, or Canadian work experience mixed with foreign work experience. So based on a combination of those factors, you can score up to another 100 points. And that's usually where foreign nationals overseas are able to maximize those points. But they will lose out on the Canadian work experience, which is a super important component when they are favoring people to be drawn. All right, and you can see there 100 points, and that's the same for both sides. So once you get through that initial education and experience factors, then the points are the same. And then the magical job offer with a labor market impact assessed supported position. You get 600 points right off the bat. If you have one of those, you can see clearly it's heavily weighted to people who have an offer of employment from a Canadian company who has gone through the process of showing there is no Canadian that can fill the job and none that are available, and that they have special permission from the government to then hire someone from a foreign country, a foreign national. So if you have a job offer that's supported by one of those labor market impact assessments, you will get 600 points. And the government has said, and it has borne true, 600 points will guarantee you to receive an ITA. So I'll talk a little bit more about the rounds of invitations, but this is then left a real significant problem for people who may even be working in Canada. But if you do not have one of those job offers that's supported by an LMIA, you don't get those points. And so you're at a huge disadvantage. So you can see how important the government treats express entry for the purposes of matching individuals to meet labor market demands. And so if you have that job offer, you're in really good shape. Now, I want to jump to the married people, and I'm just going to skip through this very quickly. But you'll see here, as I indicated before, that the human capital factors for the principal applicant are 460. And they have essentially stripped away the 40 points for the spouse. So you can see now you're only getting 100 for age, 150 for language, and 140 for education, and 70 for work experience. And the reason is because those 40 points are stripped away and they're given to a spouse. And that leaves 10 points attributed for education, 20 for language, and up to 10 for Canadian work experience. And each of these point totals is based on your age, the level of language proficiency that you have, the level of education that you've obtained. And so the higher your education, the better your language abilities. Fitting within the right age bracket will get you more points. But you'll see the transferability, the 100 points apply the same, and also the job offer, same thing. So that's a quick overview between the two. And I think that's really important to understand because if you are deciding whether or not to have your spouse go through the process of writing the IELTS test or the CELPIP test, well, if you don't, you're losing 10 points right off the bat. And that could mean the difference between being granted an invitation to apply and not. All right, so now let's take a look, because here's something that came forward, and I get this a lot. So here's a listener question that I'm going to toss out here, and here's Melinda's question. And Melinda actually is on the call, so I'm super happy that she was able to do that. I was crossing my fingers she would be able to. So she indicates here, if I meet the essential criteria, so in other words, she meets the requirements of one of the programs, the Federal Skilled Trade, Federal Skilled Worker, or the Canadian Experience class, and I do not have a job offer supported by an LMIA, what are the chances? In other words, what are the chances of actually getting an invitation to apply? Well, let's take a look at this next slide. Here's the scores that have received invitations to apply. So if you have points that have reached the following totals, you would have been given an invitation to apply. And these are sequential. So each of the rounds of draws, so 1 through 22, and the last one was on December the 4th. You will see here that the lowest total, or at least the lowest CRS score that was granted an invitation to apply, was 450. And what that means is that, yes, indeed, there are people who are able to receive an invitation to apply when they do not have that extra 600 points. And you can see actually at the very beginning, it was only the very beginning draws, subject to the one anomaly, draw number 9 at 755. Generally speaking, there have always been people, as the program has gone on, that have been given invitations to apply without that LMIA supported job offer. So the short answer is yes, it is possible. And I want to share something else with you. When I spoke with the government, and when I was involved with up until September of this year, and I still am involved with the National Executive, Immigration Executive for the Canadian Bar Association, in our meetings with government officials, they have told us that eventually where they see these point totals get to is going to be between 350 to 450 points. So if you right now find yourself in that range, then you have a chance. And obviously, with the draws already reaching 450, I don't believe it's going to be long before those totals drop down again. And the reason we have a little bit of a higher anomaly at the end of the year here, with the points going up a little bit, is because they've now started processing some of the provincial nominee applications, the express entry categories, which has caused the totals to rise a little bit. And so there you have it. So yes, absolutely. Now, if you do not have any ability to reach 350 points, then I have to tell you that the likelihood of you qualifying based on your human capital points alone, so without an LMIA, is probably non-existent. And so don't believe anyone who tries to take your money and tell you that with 300 points, there's still a chance you can get drawn. I would not waste your money with that representative or anyone who's trying to convince you of that. But if you are below, then what you need to do is you need to really try and see if you can find an employer who is willing to offer you that magical LMIA supported job offer. And like I said, we're going to talk about that in the course, and that's what I'm going to work with you a little bit on as well. So why am I doing this? Here is a perfect example. So I'm trying to grow my beard out a little bit, but I'm not quite as gray as that guy, 43 years old. I feel like probably how old he looks, but especially after dealing with all these express entry changes. But ultimately, the reason that I'm doing this, I want to touch on this. Why am I even doing this webinar right now? Why am I offering it for free? Why am I considering creating a course? What's motivating me? Well, the reality is each of you, I'm sure, have gone on the internet and you've tried to research. You've spent hours reading everything you can get your hands on. The immigration, the Citizenship and Immigration website. Well, now it's Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, IRCC. But ultimately, you've tried to do all you can to educate yourself. And the government has told you that you can do it yourself. You don't need to hire a representative. We've got all the information there. Well, the reality is, don't believe the government. Ultimately, the most important thing for you is that you can get information that you can trust. And there's tons of information out there on the internet. There's immigration forums, and some of them are just full of wonderful information. But it's really difficult to know who to trust and who you can't. And so in my desk here in my office, and I'd switch the camera over and, and show you my office, but you've already seen it in some of the previous videos that I've done. I've had people come to my office and explain to me their situation, only for me to realize that there is nothing that I can do to help them. If they'd come to me a year previously, then I probably, well, more than likely in most cases, could have gotten them on a path that would have really taken them to where they wanted to be, whether it was permanent residence, whether it was the extension of their work permit. But they didn't come to me. And why didn't they come to me? Well, it's because my fees were too expensive. And usually people only go to a lawyer when it's their last choice, and then they have no other options. So the choice of paying a lawyer's high legal fees or not is it's not a question anymore, because it's the difference between being deported or removed from Canada and forking over the $400 or whatever for a 1-hour consultation. Now, ultimately, I saw it happen so many times. People would go to the least common denominator. In other words, they would go to the internet and just trust the information that they received there, or well-meaning friends who went through it themselves and then thought that their situation would apply to their friend, and they could just do the same thing that they did, and it would have success. Or they used a representative, whether it was a consultant or a lawyer, who was just dabbling or just trying to get money from people and really didn't know what the heck they were doing. And so people's lives were just being destroyed and having to go home. And I was so tired of people coming to me and telling me, their story, and then me not being able to do a dang thing about it. And so I realized that something had to change. But it wasn't just these people. I think of all of the foreign students that have come to Canada, who have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for their educations, the extremely high tuition fees, all with this promise that they'd have a pathway to permanent residence. And these individuals themselves were placed in a position where, after the changes after January the 1st, they didn't qualify. And so, and then ultimately, the other group of people was foreign workers who were here in Canada, who were facing the 4-year cap that started at the beginning of April this year, who are desperately trying to go through permanent residence and now are finding themselves running short of points. And so all of these individuals were going through these issues and problems, and they were not coming to me at the beginning. And and it wasn't just them. Even professionals, generally speaking, people would assume that if the government says you don't need to hire a representative, then you don't. You can just do it yourself. It's easy. That's what I hear all the time. But what people don't advertise is all the people who have their lives ruined because they trust sources that really they shouldn't be trusting, or they'll even trust the call center that immigration has available for people and follow the advice they're given to their detriment. And there's no recourse. It's like, oh, too bad. And so I knew something had to change. And so I don't know if any of you guys, if this resonates with any of you, but just let me know. Are any of you in the situation or similar to the situation that I've described with these scenarios? Just type into the comment box and let me know if I'm out to lunch, or if this really isn't as big of an issue as I think it is. Type into the comments and say yes or no if one of these groups applies. And yeah. Of course it does. And so I'm seeing, I'm seeing individuals, Lamar, yes. I'm seeing a number of people here that are acknowledging, yeah, that's me. Huge issue from Lamar, and Yogesh and Rajver and Dekshata, all of you, yeah, and so I knew that this was impacting people. Some people are okay; they get through. They're able to rely on this advice, and there's not an issue. They you know they've got the time, and they've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours reading everything they can get, comparing the information to see which one is actually accurate and which one isn't. So like I said, I knew something had to change. So I started the Canadian Immigration Podcast first. And every week I try to put out a new podcast. And in fact, if you want to listen to one that's really awesome, listen to the one that Billy and I did, interview with an ex-immigration officer. That was a lot of fun. But it's designed to give free information. And because I don't have the capacity to help one person one-on-one, to the extent I wanted to, there's just only so much, there's only so much time that you have available. I decided to see what I could do to try and scale it, use my teaching background, use the wonderful people that I have in my office, Billy and other staff members, to be able to reach more people and share information that actually is going to help them, to warn them about things that they should avoid, and to give them direction and guidance in ways that will make the difference between whether they'll qualify for receiving that invitation to apply, or even whether their permanent resident applications that they're filing are actually done properly. So that's kind of some of the rationale that I've looked at as I've been creating these resources for people. And so you can go to the CanadianImmigrationPodcast.com website and see some of the resources that we've created. I've written blogs on specific aspects, all free, all with the design of at least trying to help some people out there. And after a while, I started spending so much time on it that, in all honesty, my firm started to be affected by it. And Billy can attest to this. Over the last couple months, it's been a little interesting here, because I've spent so much time trying to create these free resources. And so I realized, I have to figure out a way to monetize this. I have to figure out a way that I can go forward and help people, but still get paid something for it, so that I can justify doing what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'll have to just revert back to the traditional method of representing people through the old way. And not that I will ever go away from that, because people do just want to hire us and have the peace of mind. But anyways, so the goal here with this webinar was to give you stuff that you can actually use, things that will help you. And I ask you to send me questions for the webinar that I could answer here. And some of the common questions that I get, boy, I'll tell you, if I was to try and respond to everyone's questions that were sent, this webinar would be over 10 hours. And I don't want to waste everybody's time with that, even though it would be helpful. So what I've tried to do is to focus on questions that were very similar. And in all honesty, that's how I created my course. The questions that people ask me, I know the process, and so I teach you how to do everything. But there's common questions that come up that are just not addressed anywhere else. And so that's exactly where I have focused all of my efforts, is on answering the questions that people ask. Now, many of the questions were just too specific and confidential to answer in the form of a webinar, but I have a solution for those specific questions. And I'll explain that a little bit later, how I intend to resolve that and to make it work, so that I can help as many people as possible without having to charge them $400 an hour for legal fees. So within this webinar, I've chosen 2 of the most common questions. And I'm going to answer these questions in just a few minutes. But first, I really wanted to focus on something that I shared in a previous webinar, but I can tell you, this is essential, critical stuff. If there's one thing that you can take away from this webinar, this will be it. So these are my top 5 things to do before you even think about applying for Express Entry. So those of you who are either in Canada or overseas, focus on these things and listen, because if you just follow the CIC website, you're going to be wasting money possibly that you wouldn't need to do otherwise. And that's why I'm offering this free webinar, is because I want to help people. Not only do I want them to join us and be a part of our Express Entry course, which I'm going to share in a little bit, but I also want you to select yourselves. So I want you to understand, if you truly don't have a chance of qualifying, then you don't have to be throwing money away at crooked consultants and people like that, and dabbling lawyers who don't really know what they're doing and are going to take your money to do an assessment. Well, here's what you need to focus on so that you don't have to pay someone else to assess for you. The very first thing, and this is going to save you literally over $500 to start off, don't follow CIC's instructions. Now, when I say that with a little bit of tongue in cheek, but the order in which they tell you to do things when you start looking at whether or not you qualify is going to have you shelling out dollars that you don't necessarily need to do if you don't have a chance of qualifying in the beginning. So this is important. Don't rush off and get a language test first. Some may think, well, I need that. It's essential for the portal. I can't submit my express entry without a language. Well, that's fine, but there's some things you need to cross over first before you get there. The next thing is in the same token, don't run off and get an educational credential assessment done immediately. Don't do it. So educational credential assessments are going to cost you between $226 Canadian, and the language testing is around $265 to $300 Canadian. And obviously it will vary depending on where you are in the world, but that's $500. Don't do it. Here's what you do. First, make sure you're not otherwise inadmissible. So there's a number of ways that you can be inadmissible: medically, criminally, maybe you were refused admission, maybe you've been deported previously. And so if any of those things apply to you, you need to determine whether or not there's any of those bars in place. And if that's the case, you're not even going to get through the door. So don't waste your money. 2, determine if you have at least 1 year of skilled work experience. Now, I say that because that's the baseline minimum that you need to get through the door with all of the programs. You need to have at least that. And if you do not have 1 year of skilled work experience, in other words, let's say you're working as a food counter attendant, and that's considered a low skill position for the purposes of immigration to Canada, or if you're working as a general laborer, any of those positions are not considered skilled, and you will not qualify for express entry. So if anyone's trying to convince you otherwise, get rid of them. Don't listen to them. 3, now it's time. If you pass 1 and 2, now go get your language test. If you've taken your test, there are certain levels that you need to meet in order to qualify for the permanent resident programs. I'm going to go through, and there's resources out there that will help you. But within the course, we're going to go through strategically through every one of those categories, teach you how to do the Come to Canada tool, how to know whether or not you qualify. We're going to go through all of that within the course. And then those of you who are not able to qualify right now, we're also going to spend a lot of time on what you need to do to improve your chances. But now's the time to take your language test. If you meet those minimum thresholds, which for the federal skilled worker program, which is generally what most of you overseas are going to be going through, you need to have at least a CLB 7. In other words, a Canadian language benchmark level 7. If you don't have that, then you're not going to be able to get through the door. Then once you've got that base minimum Canadian language benchmark, then you can go ahead and get the educational credential assessment done. And that's a mandatory component. If you've got post-secondary education, you're not going to get any points through the CRS system unless you have gone through and gotten your ECA done. Then finally, determine if you qualify for one of the PR programs. So this is the order. And really, you can't determine if you're going to qualify for one of the programs without doing those prior steps. You need your formal language testing so you know exactly how many points you're going to get. The same goes for the educational credential assessment. So there you go. That's what I've got for you. And that is absolutely critical. That's getting through the gate. And if you can't get through the gate, then everything else, my course is not for you. I don't want to take anyone's money unless they have the ability to have a reasonable chance of qualifying. And that even goes back to what I told you about the sweet spot for the comprehensive ranking system. You must absolutely 110% must fit within those 350 to 450 points. If you're below that, then I really at this stage wouldn't consider you a candidate. Okay, let's get to the listener questions here. Thanks everyone for being patient to this point. I'm just going to grab a quick drink. Okay, so this is from Zara. I would really like if you could start from the very beginning, like from where we should start the process if we want to immigrate to Canada from Pakistan. What would be the first step? This is a fantastic question. And part of the reason I selected this question is because this is the course. this is exactly what we are going to teach you. This will walk you through step by step every single aspect of the process so that you can select the proper pathways, know what you need to do to immigrate to Canada. And ultimately, now the express entry process is the route that you have to go. That's the gate you have to go through. So, if you were to ask what would be the first step, well, Zara, the very, very first step would to be, and I'm going to jump back here, to go through this process. So, you want to make sure if you qualify. So this is, this is the exact process that you're going to follow. And so go through each of these steps and determine if you qualify for express entry. All right, next question. I have, and this is Manveer. I have a file already processing in the AINP since last year. So Manveer is probably working in Alberta. And I didn't see if Manveer was actually live on the call with us, but ultimately it is, this is a question I get so very, very frequently. So he has an application already through one of the provincial nominee programs. And he says, I'm planning to enter into the express entry in the CEC category, which is very common for people who are working in Canada. Does it make any difference if I have a file in process and I'm entering another one in express entry? Can I do that? Absolutely, Manveer. This is something that you can do. And because of what the government has done to us, because of what Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada has done to us with express entry, I counsel people to take every avenue they can and file applications through if you have multiple options for permanent residence, pursue every one, because you do not know which one is going to work for you. The whole process has become so uncertain. So that's absolutely wonderful that you have an AINP application that's submitted, Manveer. Keep it, allow it to process, because the government does not restrict how many permanent resident applications you have in the queue. They don't cancel each other out. You can go through your AINP and you can also go through express entry. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. In fact, the only real restrictions is if you are sponsoring people through the family class or one of the family class categories. If you're acting as a sponsor of a family member, you can only have one sponsorship in place at a time. All right, thanks so much, Manveer. That was a great question. All right, let's now deal with the specific question problem. So like I said, one-on-one just isn't working for me. And the reality is people pay me $400 an hour to assist them. And for many people, that's just way more than they can afford for just, a 1 hour consultation. And so something had to give, something had to change. And when you think of CIC's one-touch policy, it can be so cruel. And what I mean by that is when you file an application, especially through express entry, if you get one little thing off, then you are done. They will bounce the application. You'll have to go back into the queue. And if you're one of the people, if you go back to that draws, those rounds of invitations, if you're one of the individuals that had 450 points, well, you'd still be sitting around waiting for it to drop down to that level over the last 4 or 5 draws because it hasn't gotten down that low. And so this one-touch policy can be cruel. You have to get it right. Even though CIC says, well, it's not a big deal. If it's not right, we'll just kick it back and then you can put yourself back into the queue. Well, that's fine if you have 600 points. But understand, if you're in one of those areas where you're just barely making the cut, then you can't afford to get it wrong. And when the stakes are that high, it's just crazy because you're left with in many cases, I've seen people who've lost out on their opportunity to become permanent residents because of just a goofy, stupid little mistake that they never even realized they'd done anything wrong. And ultimately, many people just can't afford to get it wrong. You've got your whole lives resting on it. And this is something I can't understand. People, they are always looking to try and find a route to get the assistance they need for their immigration that's free. And I can tell you, you get what you pay for. And so the people are putting their lives and their future in Canada in the hands of just free resources on the internet, or someone that they have no clue who's giving them advice through an immigration forum, or they're counting on these people to give them information, and they're basing their futures in Canada on it. And I could never figure that out. Maybe some of you can help me to understand that. But I'll tell you, if the difference was my future in Canada and not, I tell you, I'd be looking to try and find at least someone that is reputable, that knows what they're doing. And obviously, the purpose behind me doing all of this is to try and help you to see that that I do know what I'm doing, and hopefully to gain some trust and confidence in myself. So, despite what CIC says about doing it yourself, some people, they just need a little extra help. It may not be a lot. They may not need to formally hire a lawyer or one of the great consultants out there to assist them. They may be able to get through mostly on their own, but they just have a few questions that they need answered. And to a large extent, that's exactly where we fit in. So now we've reached the stage in our PowerPoint, and I want to thank all of you so very much for sticking with us so far. It's been over an hour, and we're slowly starting to get to the end here. But now is the time where I want you to upload your notes to our Facebook page. So those of you who've been taking notes, I'd like you to go to the Canadian Immigration Podcast Facebook page. And when you post a comment on there, there's an ability to upload a picture. So even if you snap a picture of your notes and post those on the Canadian Immigration Podcast Facebook page, and post the notes and leave a comment there on how, whether or not you like the what we're doing here, this webinar. I really need people to be honest, because if they're not happy with the resources and they're not happy with the information that's being given, I need them to be honest. Because in all honesty, right now, I have lots of positive comments on the site, and maybe that's a reflection and people are happy with the resources that we're giving them. But some people will look at it and say, well, they're just deleting the negative ones. So if anyone isn't happy with the webinar and has suggestions for making it better, then please leave those comments too. It's not going to disqualify you from winning I should say winning, from being drawn with this special offer of the 30-minute legal consultation. So go to the Facebook page, Canadian Immigration Podcast, and then we will notify the winners a little bit later once we've had a chance to take a look at these awesome notes and see who are the best note takers. All right. And I just wanted to emphasize as well that these 30-minute consultations are each themselves a $200 value. And that's a real value. That is exactly what I charge when people book consultations for me. By the time we add our sales tax on, it's right around $200. All right. So thank you for those who've stuck with me to this point. All right. So now let's get into what this is all leading towards. And this is the Canadian Immigration Institute's very first pioneered express entry course. I ran a pilot already with an awesome group of people who helped me so very much to understand how I'm going to run this and how I'm going to make it work. And so these individuals that were a part of the very first pilot, it was on how to submit your profile. Well, I'm taking those the information that I got from that, and I'm adding it to a full express entry course that covers everything. The process of submitting your profile, all the way to receiving your invitation to apply, to finalizing your permanent resident application, everything, all the way through to landing. And so that is what the course is going to cover, a step-by-step process. Now, some are going to say, well, what's the benefit? Once again, here's another lawyer or whoever who's just trying to get money out of our hands. Everybody on the internet says it's easy, we can do it ourselves, and we don't need to hire someone. Well, I can tell you that what I offer is pretty simple. To start with, you have access to a resource you can trust versus taking your chances. And the second thing I can guarantee is that you're going to experience a significant time savings in doing your application. So many people are going to be able to sort it out eventually. They're going to work hard, they're going to read everything that they can find, and ultimately they're going to be able to obtain enough information to get through. And maybe they even have the luxury of submitting their permanent resident application and getting it refused, and then refiling time and time again. That may be a possibility for people. But for most people, they know that the window of time that they have is so short. So by utilizing the express entry course that we're going to offer, you're going to save a ton of time, because I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. You follow the steps, and you're going to be able to do things in an hour that would take you probably 20 hours to figure out. And so time savings is one thing. Next, you're going to save thousands of dollars in representative fees by doing it yourself, with, of course, just a little help from us. And so obviously people are going to want to they're going to want to get information and advice that they can trust and rely on. Some people are going to choose. They're going to say, look, I just don't want to have any stress of doing it wrong, so I'm going to hire a representative. And there's wonderful, wonderful representatives out there, just fantastic lawyers, really experienced, knowledgeable consultants. And they may just, be someone that you want to hire. You may even want to hire Holy Tillman LLP, our office, just to do it for you. And we provide complete peace of mind, just as the other representatives do. But the reality is, many of you will say, look, I just don't have the money to afford to hire someone to represent me. I'd rather try and do it myself. I just need just a little bit of help to get me to where I want to go. And so just to reemphasize, number one, what you're going to get from this course is a resource you can trust, significant time savings, and dollars. And so I'm not an advocate of finding the cheapest option out there and using it. But what we're going to offer here is a scaling. So there's going to be many people going through at the same time. They're going to be all learning together. I'm going to be teaching everyone together, utilizing my teaching background. And I'm going to be showing them exactly how to go through the process. And because of that, I can leverage my time. And so each of you are going to be able to share in my representation together. All right, so what's in this course? And this is the part that gets me the most excited. So you can see here, we've got 6 awesome components. First, there's going to be 4 live weekly presentations, and they're going to be right around 2 hours. They're going to include a step-by-step video tutorial. So this is something that you can watch as fast or as slow as you want. You can access it at any time. These weekly presentations, I've indicated here that they're going to be live. More than likely, they're going to be pre-recorded. And the reason is because I find when I do the live ones, I forget things. And so I'm going to pre-record these weekly presentations that you can go back and watch at any time. And you can take them through and walk through them as slow or as fast as you need to as you're actually submitting your profile, as you're completing the permanent resident process, as you're uploading your documents, all of those essential components that cause people a whole lot of stress. I'm going to walk you right through and show you how to do all of that. But that's not enough. That's a do-it-yourself guide. Well, that's not what I'm offering here. At least if it's at least I don't think that's what people want, is just a do-it-yourself guide, at least at this stage. And so what we're also going to offer is 4 weekly Q&A webinars. And those, I do intend to make those live. And so those are going to be 1 hour long, and people have an opportunity to submit their questions in advance. I'll pool the ones that we have that are the same, and then I'll try to do my very best to answer the questions that are really applicable to everyone. And sometimes you're going to have questions that you don't even know you have. And so these weekly live Q&A webinars are going to teach you even more information, and it's going to be driven by you. Then we're also going to have a private Facebook group. And that's going to be another resource where you can share information, your experiences. And let's face it, for some of you, you're going to get through fast. You're going to get your invitation to apply, and you are going to have the opportunity to become a permanent resident right away. Others are going to be in it for a little bit longer haul. If you're sitting at about 360 or 370 points, it could be a year before you actually get through. Well, this private Facebook group is going to be open, and you will always have access to that resource. And actually, if you drop down one below the private Facebook, you'll see there's an immigration resource bank. That is where we're going to have all the information that we're putting together in this course available for you. And the course, I expect, is going to last about 1 month with the live interaction and everything. That's going to be available for approximately 1 month. And you'll have an opportunity to go through the whole process, learn all the tips and strategies, ask all the questions you need. And whether you receive an invitation to apply right away or not, I will make sure that you have everything available for you to get you prepared to get through with the permanent resident process when your ticket is drawn. So that immigration resource bank will be available for you. It'll have recordings of all the presentations, all of the Q&As, and also there will be a Q&A resource bank as well. So in addition to the webinars, the frequently asked questions that I get, I've got just a ton of videos in there already answering the common questions that I have in a format just like this. Now, the 2 parts that I think, as far as I'm concerned, are the absolute most value for you One is the unlimited email support. So during that 1 month that the course is open, and I'm actually, because you guys are still relatively my pilot, I may consider expanding that depending on the needs of everyone. So unlimited email support. You can send us all the questions, the specific ones that I can't answer in these webinars, or I can't answer in the Q&A webinars. This is where you can ask them. So you can send us those emails. We will guide you. We will direct you. We'll help you. And so, for all intents and purposes, I know what's entailed with hiring a representative to help you. If it's a consulting firm or a law firm that does a lot of applications, good luck getting an opportunity to speak with anyone or get emails responded to in a timely fashion. It's all about volume for them. And you may even pay a relatively low price for the service that you're getting filing the application. But when it comes to specific questions that you have, good luck. You're not going to get that direct, unlimited email support. Well, we're offering this in the course. And I think that alone, for what we're gonna charge you, is worth every penny. But on top of it, I know that sometimes you just need to speak with a live person. You just need to talk to me or to Billy or someone that's been assigned to help you. And I can tell you, for you guys in the first group, it's going to be us, me and Billy. And so 2 15-minute in-person calls will also be given to every single person. And the reality is that's a $200 value right there alone. Without any reservation, that in and of itself is it probably covers almost the cost of the course. And so those are the 6 features that I'm super excited about. I'm committed to this course. I think it is going to be something that's going to revolutionize immigration, and you guys have the opportunity to be one of the first ones to be a part of it. And I know that not everybody could get onto this webinar and attend this live session. And so those of you who are listening to the recording, this applies to you every bit as much. This course is going to be awesome. And part of the reason I know it is because it has been built based on what you've asked me to do for you. It is built on the actual needs of what you've expressed to me, not what I think are your needs. So that is where it is. So let's talk about what everybody's probably been waiting for. I also want to address the fact that this is a 100% money back guarantee. I don't believe in taking people's money if they're not getting value and they don't feel like it's worth anything. So just as an advisory, 100% money back guarantee. Now, I also want to talk about a couple things here, and I need to explain this to you so you can see, because I don't think many people understand. Generally speaking, when you're hiring an immigration lawyer, you're probably going to pay, at least an immigration lawyer who knows what they're doing, you're probably going to pay almost $5,000 Canadian. Well, and even more in some cases. And that's just for the legal fees. If you want someone just to review your application, it's probably going to be around $2,500. Sometimes consultants will offer the full price for that, and sometimes dabbling lawyers will as well. But ultimately, when you're starting to drop down in fees, it's because they're taking on high volumes of applications. My formal legal consultations are $400 an hour. So you can see all the resources that we're giving, the total cost here, that it's costing people right now who engage our services, who really want the information that's actually going to help them. Well, I have determined that the full Express Entry course I'm going to offer for $997. And the reason that I'm offering it at that rate, which I think is a significant value, is largely because of the content. I believe in it. It is going to do everything for you that you need it to do. But you guys have actually come on this call and you've shown the faith to be here and to watch it and to stick with me. And so my intention is to give you guys 50% off before the end of the webinar if you register. And so I'm going to offer it at $497 for all of you that are on the call. So anyone who would like to take this, the course right now through to the end of the webinar, it's going to be at $497. And there's going to be 50 spaces that are available. And once it fills up, then it's going to be over because we can't take any more than those 50 spaces. So I hope that by the time people that are watching this, I hope that obviously I hope that it fills up fast, but I want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity. So $497 is what we're looking at charging for it. Go to this link to register for it. Now I'm going to try and shift over and show you exactly how to do this. Let's see if I can figure this out. So bear with me here. I'm going to shift over to Safari. And there, I think you can see it actually. So this is the website. So you have a choice here. And I also want to address one more thing that I didn't directly within the PowerPoint. You'll see here that you have some options. We charge roughly $5,000 if someone wants to retain us to formally represent them and manage the whole process, complete all of the forms, everything. But the course, like I said, for you, it's going to be $497. And that includes, as we look at the all of the different elements that we have for the course, it includes everything. The 100% money back guarantee, the 2 15-minute phone calls, the unlimited email, the private Facebook groups, the resource bank, the 6 step-by-step video tutorials. And actually, I've got 6 in here. It's in the PowerPoint, I needed to update that. So it is 6 that it's going to be. And so for $497, you will have that available to you. All of our resources, all of everything that we've got. For those of you who maybe feel like, well, I don't really need any specific information. I don't need direct guidance. I don't need unlimited email. I don't need calls. I really don't even need to talk to you. Well, if some people are in that situation, then what I've decided to do is to offer them the resources that are available for $297. So you have 2 options that you can choose from, or even the option of retaining us fully. So if you click on the Get Started button right here, you'll see that it will ask you for your information. And then I want to point out that you can pay by credit card or you can go through PayPal. So some of you that are internationally, you just click on PayPal and then you have the option of going through there to register for the course. So that's essentially how you do it. So if you want to retain us just to help you and to walk through the whole process, we'd love to do that too. When you click on this, there's a distinction because this is then through our law firm because there's a formal legal representation. So just type your name in and just indicate what you'd like us to do for you. And then I'll be in contact with you right away. But for those of you who'd like to participate, these are the options that are available to you. And I can tell you that I really believe in this. And I believe in, by setting up this way, I'm going to have a far greater opportunity to help more people to get the information that they need to actually immigrate to Canada. So I encourage you to go forward with that. I am going to try and switch back now to my PowerPoint presentation, and it looks like I've successfully done that. And remember, for the end of until the end of the webinar, if you register, then that will be the price that you'll be charged. Once again, you can see here these are all the different things that we're going to offer in the course. But I wanted to now give you the opportunity. Whoops, I went a little bit too far. To ask any questions that you might have about the course. So any questions related to to what it entails, what's going to be covered, and I'm going to have Billy field those questions right now. And in the past, in the other webinar, I tried to field a ton of direct questions on Express Entry, but I realized that, there's just no way that I could get to everybody's questions, and I felt bad about it. And so we tried to answer some, but couldn't get to others. And really, that's what the course is designed to do. So anyone who would be interested in taking the course and just has any questions about it, please feel free to fire those off now, and we'll field those questions. Okay, one person has asked with respect to this webinar if there will be a manuscript, so a text of everything that I've said. And traditionally, that's not something that I do, but it will be, like I indicated before, it will be a live recording, and you'll be able to go back and watch it as many times as you want. So those of you who've been taking all those awesome notes, you're going to have the opportunity to get the benefits of that once we select who will be given the free consultations. But anytime you want to go back and rewatch this again, it'll be available for you. I'm not sure if Billy can get on here.
Yeah, I'm on here.
Okay, so I'm gonna have so I'm not distracted by all these questions coming in. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna have Billy field these questions, and then she can let me know what they are, and then we'll try and answer them one by one. And yeah, and we'll go as long as we need to. We'll take as much time as we need to answer your questions until everybody has had their answers, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so at this very moment, actually, here just a few minutes ago, Callian just asked what the difference, if you could explain what was the difference between full legal representation and taking the express entry course.
Okay, that's actually a really good question. So when we're going through this process and we actually represent individuals, I'm going to take a second and just explain to you the inner workings of legal representation. Because some of you, I think, are maybe not quite sure what happens when you actually retain counsel or a representative to help you. Um, Ultimately, you have the information that needs to be included within the application. You know what it is. So the process of providing that information is you're never going to get around it. It's not like the representative can actually fill in the forms for you. You have to give them that information. So usually it comes in the form of a questionnaire that's given to you and a document checklist. So you fill out the questionnaire, you provide the documents, and then the representative takes it from there. Within our office, when we do full representation, it always starts with a full comprehensive consultation. So we sit down and we talk about where you're at. For my purposes, the most important thing that I do is make sure that you qualify for express entry. And so we go through that process. And then once a determination is made that we want to be able to act for you and you're interested in hiring us, then it's a concierge level service. We help you with all aspects of it. You have you have full access to any of us to ask questions. We explain every aspect of the process. We provide you with the questionnaire and the document checklist. We collect that information, and then from there, we submit all of the applications through our representative portal. And so we manage the whole process. So there's never a situation of being afraid that the email notification goes to your junk folder and you miss it, or that when you're completing your reference letters or the other aspects of express entry that are so critical, we make sure that they're done right, that they're completed properly, and we actually review them and manage them. We oversee all the documentation and we don't upload it into the system until we know it's correct. If there are areas that we feel you need to shore up or improve, there's things that are missing, that's what we do. We make sure there's no internal inconsistency in your answers, and we go out of our way to walk you through the process. And what we really sell, it's peace of mind. And so when you engage us, you're able to know that you don't have to worry anymore. And we will, trust me, we don't take clients on unless we know that they're going to have that there's no reason that their applications are going to be refused. And so when we go through this process, our what we offer is a guarantee. We don't, like I said, we don't submit applications unless we know they're going to be approved. So we'll complete the profile for you. We submit that into the pool, and we'll know in advance before we even file it how many points you're going to get, because we'll do that assessment for you and provide it to you. Once it's completed, we have a very aggressive client copy policy. So we explain everything to you. We provide copies of all of the correspondence, everything that we've submitted, all notifications we get from the government. You're always kept in the loop, every aspect, every ounce of the process, every step along the way. You're kept in the loop. And then once your invitation to apply comes through, then it's our job to make sure that the documentation that has to be uploaded, that it's done right. And I can tell you, it's really finicky. And if there's anything that's even off even a little bit, it can mean the difference between your permanent resident application being approved and being bounced because of Citizenship and Immigration Canada's, or IRCC's, one-touch policy. So we basically hold your hand. We walk you through the whole process. We treat people like family, and I think that's what makes us different than a lot of more larger entities that are focused on high volumes. So once notification comes for approval, we notify you of that, and really that's essentially what we do. We walk you through the whole process all the way through to until you become a permanent resident of Canada. And then when you look at the course that we're offering, some people can't afford those fees for that, that full representation. And so what I've decided to do, because we have so many people that are going to be taking the course at the same time, I pour every ounce of our experience, our knowledge, and I give you specific instructions on how to go through and do everything that we do within our office, except you're going to be doing it. So rather than paying us to fill in the forms on the computer, within the Express Entry portal, you are doing it. And we're walking it through. But instead of doing it blindly, you'll actually have a video tutorial walking you through screen by screen how to do it. And then if you run into any problems, well, what do? You send us an email, and you say, I'm having trouble with this one part of the portal. And then there's a response. We send one back. It says, okay, here's what you do, or here's how you solve your problem, or this is what you've done wrong. So that's the unlimited email. And then if you run into a situation that you just really can't explain very well, then you book an appointment, and we set time aside where we can have those 15-minute calls. And let's face it, I'm going to be generous with you guys. So if it goes 20 minutes or 25 minutes, I'm not going to stop you at 15 minutes. And I know some people are going to listen to this and they're going to feel like, oh, here's another lawyer who's just, trying to make more money and trying to take advantage of people who don't even need the assistance. And there's going to be people out there that just are not interested at all. And that's fine. But I can tell you that this is not going to be a cash grab. The whole purpose of this is to help people. If I wanted to just continue practicing law the way I'm doing, making $400 an hour or whatever people are willing to pay me, I could do that. But I didn't get into law just to line my pockets with money or well, whatever. I don't need to go into any more details. Ultimately, it's designed to genuinely try to help people. And I can tell you that if you take the course, you will not regret it. All right, I was way more long-winded than I anticipated, but any other questions?
There are just some case-specific questions, it looks like, at the moment. I'm not sure that there are any specific questions about the course, except there was a question in regarding the 100% guarantee, the acceptance of your money back. So if you want to explain maybe the difference, what that entails if you're just taking the course in comparison to whether you hire the firm to submit the application on their behalf.
Yeah, let me just go back to the actual page here. Okay, here we are, and let me just take a look. So understand this is a work in progress. So, okay, so yeah, it should not be disabled. So thank you for pointing that out. Within this 497 Express Entry course, you'll see here 30-day money back guarantee. Although it shows that the 100% guarantee acceptance or your money back is disabled, understand that the 30-day money back guarantee is based on us and the advice and direction we're giving you. The reason that I don't have 100% guarantee acceptance or your money back is because I do not control how many points you get. So if you let's take the position that you're a low skill worker and you don't have any skilled work experience. Well, if you pay the $497, I cannot guarantee that you're going to get approved because you don't qualify in the beginning. And so, what I guarantee 100% is that you are getting value. You're getting the help that you need. That you are, that the process that we're following here, you're getting all of the advice and direction to ensure that you get through safely and that it is approved. But I can't guarantee, because the whole process, when you're managing it and doing it yourself, I can give you all the tools, but the $497 means that you're the one that's actually filling in the form. You're the one that's actually completing the online portal. But I'm giving you all the tools and resources and help to do it yourself. So that's why the price is different. And why is it 10 times as much for legal representation? Why does it go from $497 to $4,997? Well, that's because on that one, we do offer 100% guarantee because we control the whole process. And if we do anything wrong that causes your application to be refused, I will deal with it. I will, if it's we've never, I can tell you that in terms of, we've never had an application that through the express entry process that has ever not gone through. Now, we've had some bumps along the way when the portal first started, and we got some rejections that we shouldn't have, but we are your advocates, and so with the full representation, that's the difference. We will offer that 100% guarantee. Because we're the ones that are backing it. And I'm not going to take a client and take people's money unless I am very confident that it's going to be approved. And then it's on us to make sure that we do things properly. So that's the difference. Thanks so much for asking that question, though.
Okay, I think that's all we have right at the moment for questions regarding the course. I'm not sure, Mark, if you wanted to get into any of the more so case-specific questions that the listeners had, or
well, you know
how much
what?
time you wanted to put into that.
Yeah, you know what? Let me just take two, okay? Because I don't want people to come and just feel like, once again, there's not value. And so there was one question that I saw, Mohammed from Dubai. It says, I'd like to know, what is the minimum CRS points one received and actually got an ITA? And some of these questions, this is a classic example. So people, because of the number of interactions that we're going to have with people, the Q&A, the actual the videos that we're going to do, each of these different aspects are designed to help people answer their questions in the way that they can best receive. And sometimes we're going to get questions, we're going to get emails that we've already answered, and maybe they're already answered in the Q&A, maybe they're already answered in the previous video tutorials. But this is a classic example. So Mohammed here, he asks, once again, I'd like to know, what is the minimum CRS points one received and actually got an ITA? Well, that's a wonderful question. And if you go back to the rounds of invitations, that slide that I had, and let me see if I can actually go back and I'll show you, I've actually answered it within the webinar. So let me see if I can skip back. It's going to be, I'm just going to jump right through here. I'm not sure if I lost you or not with my screen here, but I want to get right to it. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to see if I can get you on. I know Justin's going to come in here any minute and say, you're not on there. Okay, here we go. So there we go. Bear with me. So here's the slide. So to answer the question, the answer is 450 CRS points. And so that is the lowest total that people have had and were able to be drawn through the comprehensive ranking system. And just to clarify again, Citizenship and Immigration Canada has told us that the sweet spot, at least the spot that they're going to be focusing on in the future, is going to be, they likely expect these draws are going to be in the range of 350 to 450. And so why are the totals not there yet? It's because they're still flushing out all of the old applications through the old processing streams. And once they've got those flushed out, all those backlogs, then they're going to be drawing people purely from express entry for the economic categories. And once they do that, they're going to have to take in more people because, ultimately the levels planning for Citizenship and Immigration Canada, I keep getting that mixed up, IRCC is right in the range of, anywhere from 60 to 70,000, right in that approximate range. And so if you do the math, and each of these rounds of invitations have not exceeded more than probably about 1,500 people, the totals will have to go down if they're to meet their levels plans for each year, the number of immigrants they're going to bring in. So that's why I say, if you're within the range of 350 to 450, the government has said that is their sweet spot. It's not something I'm making up or something I'm trying to convince people who are on the low end to submit their applications. So if you are in that range, then there's absolutely no harm in going through, getting your English assessment done, and then submitting your profile into the pool. And like I said, when you do that process, and even if you're below 350, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying that the likelihood of being drawn with 350 points alone is really low. And anything below that is probably non-existent. But if you do choose to put your profile in, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you will need to ultimately rely on a job offer supported by an LMIA to receive that invitation to apply. So so you can see from this slide that that 450 is the answer. So I hope that answered your question, Mohammed. I'm not sure, Billy, if there are any others out there.
Regarding, do you want course questions or?
Yeah. Well, you can either course or specific. I could probably take maybe one more specific one and maybe one more for the course.
Okay, sure. Just 1 second here. I'm just going to switch my screens.
Actually, I just see Rajat
Yep.
said. I'll just
Yes.
address. Yeah, Rajat
That's
said.
exactly the one that we were going to talk about, the language testing there. So.
Yeah. So Rajat said, "Are you sure? Are you sure that?" And I think that the score will go low around 350. And so understand, Rajat, when I was at the last National Immigration Conference, and I think it was in Ottawa, one of the Citizenship and Immigration Canada representatives, so this is one of the officers from headquarters in Ottawa, this is exactly what they stated to us, that the sweet spot was going to be between right around 350 to 450 points. So can I guarantee, Rajat, that there's going to be a CRS total of 350 points? No, I cannot guarantee that that's going to happen. But all I can tell you is that from immigration, right from the officers themselves, the ones that manage the program, that is their target. So there may very well be a day when someone that has 345 points gets drawn. It may be that it never goes below 355. But if you're in that range, you've got a chance. And when there's absolutely nothing to lose with filing a profile, then my recommendation is that you proceed. And so I hope that answers. I'm definitely not an immigration officer that determines those thresholds, but I can tell you that is exactly what we were told earlier this year. So anything else, Billy?
Yes, I think this is a fairly good question from Callian as well. They had indicated if they have not taken their language test yet, would it help to still take the course now or wait and take it later?
That's a great question. So ultimately, all of the resources that we have available for people, and I need to clarify something. Although the course right now is scheduled to last 30 days, that 30 days relates specifically to the unlimited email and the phone calls. And so access to all of the other information, excuse me, that we have, the video tutorials, the Q&A resource bank, all of that information that we have will be open. I haven't even decided if I'm ever going to close it off. Maybe if someone gets their permanent residence and doesn't need to have their email address in there and get notifications from me, then maybe then there's no point to keeping it. But ultimately, I want to make this worth your while. And if some people say to me, hey, 30 days is too short, then we'll look at extending it. Maybe we'll make it 60 days. For those who haven't written the English test, well, really that's a decision that you're going to have to make, I guess. Ultimately, you cannot even submit your profile unless you take the test. So if you have at least 1 year of skilled work experience and you're not otherwise inadmissible from coming to Canada, then if you have that, then you have it. There's a chance that you can go forward and you can actually qualify. But the reality is, you won't even know how many points you're going to get unless you ultimately write your English test and get your educational credential assessments. So both of those are important components, and that's why I set those out in the slide the way I did. So in your situation, should you take the course? Well, you're gonna have to make that decision yourself. I personally think that how long does it take to schedule a language test? If you feel like your language is not going to be there and need to practice some more, then by all means hold off. You don't need to take the course right now. wait till you're in a position where you're ready to move forward. Because I don't want anyone to come in and then be really busy with their lives and not have the time to go through and sit through and then miss out on that opportunity to ask questions. I don't want that to happen. So I want everybody who's interested in taking the course to be ready, and because I want to get you through as quickly as possible. I don't want to waste any time with you. I don't want things to drag on and on. I want you to have the opportunity to get your ITA submitted and then have an opportunity to be drawn. And let's face it, there'll be some people here that will have already submitted their invitations to apply. Their applications into the Express Entry pool, and may have already received an invitation to apply and now need help with the permanent resident process. And so it's for that reason that I decided to combine both components into one full Express Entry course. And so ultimately, the length of time that it's open, you individuals that are taking the time to go through this process yourself, I'm going to be very generous with you. And I don't want anyone who is willing to enter into this maiden voyage with us. I don't want anyone to feel like they're being shortchanged. So I say 30 days because I need to cap it at some time, because it's not feasible to keep it open perpetually forever. And so I need to make sure that people are advancing through the process in an orderly fashion, so that we can then better manage each group of people that are going through. But I can tell you that if people are expressing concerns about 30 days being open, then let's talk about it. We can expand it. My goal is to help you. You're helping me to make this course what I believe is it's really going to be an awesome thing for many people many years down the road. You're the people that are showing the trust and faith. And so the most important thing for me is that you're getting exactly what you need from the course. And if it means that we need to extend it a little bit longer, then that's what we'll do. All right. Is there anything else, Billy, that maybe we'll take one more?
Well, I think it was already answered, but unfortunately I didn't send it to everyone. It was a good question regarding, again, sort of your explanation regarding the 30 days.
Yeah.
It might be important to note that once they register and are taking the course, that the content will be completed in the 30 days, but by them registering within the course, they will have access to the material, unlimited.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The only thing within the 30 days, that is going to be limited is the unlimited emails, and ultimately I will want you to take those, to book those phone calls at a time that is convenient for you and when you most need them. And some people may not even feel like they need the phone call or the resources. My goal is to make them so awesome that it literally answers every question that a person could have. That's my goal. And so I'm so grateful for everyone that has asked questions, even people who have asked case-specific questions within the comments here. Although I can't answer many of those because they're because that's what I'm going to be covering in the course. The reality is the unlimited emails are going to be tailored specifically to the people, and I just want you to get exactly what you want out of the course. I don't want to shortchange anyone.
And when will the course be starting?
Yes. So my plan is to initiate it right after Christmas. So we are midway through, and so my goal is to start it right after Christmas. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is because my wife has told me, you've spent so much time preparing for this. You're giving us Christmas before you give yourself to all those clients again. and so because of that, we're going to start it the first week in January. And and we'll start, like I said, we're going to start right through at the very beginning, just re-emphasize the introduction to, Express Entry, go through what you need to do to submit the profile, collecting all of the essential documents, all the way through to what happens when you receive your invitation to apply. I forgot, we're also going to show you how to register on the job bank, and then just making sure that what you're uploading. One thing I forgot that I was gonna share, and for those of you who are still on the call, and those that are brave enough to listen for an hour and 44 minutes, one thing I'm going to teach you to do is how to limit your answers in such a fashion that it doesn't cause you to have to upload all these extra documents that you don't need, like proof of funds, like extra reference letters for low skill work experience that you have. Because of the way the portal is set up, it asks you to answer questions, and if you answer them fully, certain aspects, then it will trigger the need for you to upload just a whole bunch more information and documents once you receive your invitation to apply than you really need. And also, one other tip, and I should have really added this at the beginning of the webinar. So these are tips and strategies that are free. You can consider them bonus materials. You can answer the questions within the profile in such a fashion that you can decide, or you can actually choose which program you're drawn under. So if you're working within Canada, you can answer the questions in a certain way without misrepresenting in any way, but it will make sure that you're drawn under CEC versus the Federal Skilled Worker Program, or vice versa. So those are the tips and strategies that I'm going to teach you, because there's so much more to this than just filling in boxes. You can be very strategic and you can control the process versus letting immigration control it for you. So I hope that
Perfect.
answers the question.
Yeah, I think we'll have just time for the final question here that is fairly general, so I don't think that it would be necessarily addressed within the course itself, so we can end with this.
Sure.
This question is in relation to the new immigration minister and potentially what changes you may foresee in 2016 regarding express entry. For example, whether or not current students may once again become eligible to qualify under express entry, as well as whether or not you would feel that LMIAs would no longer be, I guess, given so much credibility when going through the express entry program.
Yeah, that is the hope and prayer and dream of every postgraduate student in Canada. We do not know how far the Liberal government and our new minister, Honourable John McCallum, how far they will go to modify the specific components of express entry. We know that they hinted at making some changes, but I can tell you that that those changes, we have not received any confirmation that they're actually going to remove the LMIA component for postgrad students, or make adjustments within the comprehensive ranking system to allow foreign students to get the points that they deserve to get to help them to rank higher. And so that's a wonderful question. I did a podcast on the Canadian Immigration Podcast specifically on the changes, at least the ones that have been announced by the Liberal government within their election campaign and are on their website. The changes that they plan on implementing to immigration and how it affects foreign nationals and foreign workers and students and the like. And so you can go and you can listen to that. Go to the CanadianImmigrationPodcast.com and listen to that podcast. And I went through systematically each of the different campaign promises that the Liberals made. And they are definitely willing to listen, and they tend to. It seems to me like I'm actually quite hopeful that they are going to allow somewhat of a human, reasonable touch into this process where there's compassion and understanding. And so, as a Canadian Bar Association, I know that we are lobbying and we are trying to get them to deal with this and to provide, if at the very least, more points or actual points for students who have studied and have Canadian education, so that they can get more points to allow them to qualify. Because ultimately, and without getting into too much of an answer, because I know this webinar has lasted quite a while, one of the biggest issues that postgrad workers face, people who have completed their studies in Canada and now working on an open postgrad work permit, is that it's almost impossible in many cases to get that LMIA because you're working in an entry-level position. And, most companies are not going to be able to get a labor market impact assessment for an entry-level position because there's often other Canadians that are also interested in entering into that entry-level position. So my heart goes out for all of you who are on that type of a work permit, who have planned and spent, like I said, hundreds of thousands of dollars coming to Canada, getting an education, and now are faced with this real cruel determination that was made when Express Entry was set up. So short answer is we haven't received confirmation, but if you listen to the Canadian Immigration Podcast and you follow me, I can tell you the moment I receive any notification about that, I'll be spreading it and sharing that and that awesome news. So keep the faith and we'll cross our fingers. All right. Well, I guess that's the last question. I want to thank everyone for being a part of this. I want to thank all of the people who asked really good questions. Those who spotted some of the, some of the glitches within some of our systems, and those of you who asked real honest questions and also challenged me on the services that we're providing and what I hope to be able to provide within the course. Ultimately everyone has to make a decision in their life what they want to do. And, like I said, the one thing that I want you to get out of this webinar as I wrap up here is that I genuinely care. And it's hard in a world of people who are only interested in finding a way to make as much money as possible. It's a real, I'll be honest, it can be a real scuzzy industry that I practice in. Immigration is full of unscrupulous people who are just looking to take advantage of others. And with the government who consistently tells people that they don't need to hire a representative, there's days when I think, man, I should have stayed a tax lawyer, and stuck with the tax group who offered me an opportunity to join them when I was with the large national firm in Calgary. But you know what? I didn't do this to make money or to get recognition from the government. I focused on this area because I care about people, and I hope that translates through what we're doing here. I didn't go out of my way to put a whole bunch of testimonials from all of our clients that have had good experiences from us, but they're out there. And, there's been very, very few clients that have not had a positive experience working with us, both hiring us as representatives and even with one-off consultations. Now, there's absolutely people that have not gotten the result that they were hoping for through a variety of circumstances. But the one thing that we do is we fight for you, and we work for you, and we help you, and we care about you. And so enough of that soft, fluffy stuff. But thank you so much, everyone, for attending this webinar, especially the live webinar. And we'll be contacting those who posted their notes on the Facebook page. I want to please ask you guys, the best way to get this message out is through comments and sharing and everything. So this is going to be recorded. It's going to be available for anyone who wants to listen to it. And I'd encourage you to share it with friends or anyone else that you think might want to listen to it. Go back and listen to it again. You'll have the ability, at least I'm going to make sure Justin sets it up so that we have the ability to fast forward if people want to skip, so that they don't have to listen to some of the longer areas but can get to the good parts. Yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone and happy holidays. And I really, really look forward to being able to start down this new wonderful world of the Canadian Immigration Institute with this Express Entry course with you. So once again, I'm just going to go back here just at the very end of this presentation, and I'm going to slide to the very last slide if I can find it here. Let's see if I'm going the right direction. I think I am. And this is authentic, everyone. This is how you know that we are not some professional slick outfit. Because now I'm struggling even getting that address up again for you. Let me do it the old school way, and then there. Okay, that's good there. And then yes, Justin, there it is up. I think it is. Okay, it should be. I'm waiting for it to show up on the thing here. PowerPoint. I just want to give you the link. All right. Thanks so much once again, everyone. And like I said, have a very, very Merry Christmas.